Far Cry series has built its reputation on carefully creating conflicts set in isolated, often beautiful, remote locations, doubling down on a specific place and culture to tell its story. Far Cry 6 takes its philosophy not only to the next countrywide level, but also attempts to perfectly mould a distinct visual and cultural identity with its new setting, the Cuba-inspired fictional country of Yara. After a brief hands-off showcase of Far Cry 6, in which I saw a healthy glimpse of everything from wiener dogs in wheelchairs to a disc launcher that fires CDs playing, of all songs, the Macarena, something less ostentatious caught my eye. After all, bizarre companions and wacky weaponry are Far Cry staples at this point. The true bold step for the series appears to be the world of Yara, and the slavish attention to detail Ubisoft Toronto has applied to building Far Cry's first ever full country-scale open world. After the gameplay demonstration, I spoke to Far Cry 6's lead gameplay designer and world director, who were both more than happy to talk about Yara, its capital city Esperanza, the Cuban-inspired Resolver philosophy, and everything in between.
A castillo must be a lion, for Yara is full of lambs.
Yara is a unique country. It's built, as its own place, but for sure it reflects heavily on the references that we took from Cuba and from other Caribbean islands. For Cuba specifically, there's the interesting elements from the landscape that was something that really inspired us.
By the developer's own admission, previous entries in the Far Cry series have largely been restricted to the very specific regions of their chosen country, whether that be Hope County in Montana or the tropical Rook Islands in Far Cry 3. The series has generally stuck to one style of biome. With Far Cry 6, however, the goal is clearly to create a variety of landscapes to visit. Yara will hopefully feel like a place that could be, and perhaps was, densely populated, rather than a few strung together glorified villages and outposts. But with this new direction comes a whole new challenge for the development team.
Building a country, I think the biggest opportunity that comes with that is that in terms of infrastructures, you have to support the fact that it's a whole country. So Esperanza, the main city that you see in the video, was an interesting new challenge for us. Like, how do you apply the rules of a Far Cry game into a complete urban environment? So it's more verticality, how does the AI adapt to the streets and etc. So really cool game design challenge to tackle.
The streets of Esperanza look as if they'll feel more than familiar for anyone who's ever visited Havana. Beyond the oppressive regime looming over the city are smatterings of colonial architecture, revolutionary graffiti, and abundance of classic cars. Incorporating Havana's aesthetic into an open world game feels like a no-brainer, but there's more than the visual identity of Cuba's capital city for Yara to adopt.
The world feels different flavors as you move around it, and then obviously the architecture, the fact that the island is under these economic sanctions is something that we want to recapture too, because there's something really fascinating about this kind of paradise island that's trapped in time that we wanted to really tap into and recapture for Yara.
Despite being the largest Far Cry location to date, everything I've seen has given me the impression that Yara is a densely packed world. Not only has Ubisoft confirmed a deluge of activities and series staples like returning outposts, now called FND bases, but there appears to be plenty to do in response to the military occupation.
We wanted to show to the player that the whole land is controlled by Anton, the villain.
Rule or be ruled.
We have a new activity that is called Checkpoint, that is kind of like a bite-sized outpost. We have also anti-air cannons. It sounds like a detail, but it shows that, no, the army is also protecting the air.
They're just letting the military come in to murder us? Animales.
Cuba's tumultuous history creates a unique opportunity for Yara's inspiration beyond the country's oppressive occupation and unique visual identity. Specifically, Ubisoft Toronto has looked to the Cuban society's adopted philosophy of Resolver, the determination to get by and adapt despite the obstacles. The lack of mainland resources often force Cubans to work with what they have, and the iconic vehicles of the 1950s that still roam the streets of Havana are the shining example. These cars have been passed down through the generations, repaired and maintained in the absence of access to newer models. This philosophy was also adopted for Far Cry 6, incorporating the can-do, DIY attitude into the player's experience.
Resolver philosophy is really all about making things with whatever you have around you. So an example is when our team went to Cuba for research at the beginning of the project, they saw in someone's house an old vinyl player used as a desk fan. That really shows that over there, because they don't have access to a lot of things, they have to make do with what they have.
The developer is quick to point out that the Resolver philosophy extends beyond homemade guns that fire CDs and lawnmower engine-powered Gatling guns. He confirms that the mantra covers all sorts of systems in Far Cry 6.
You know, if you want to put a gun turret on your vehicle, go ahead. If you want it to spit flames, go ahead. Why not? It's Far Cry. So yeah, that's the Resolver philosophy for us, is really trying to apply it to those systems.
In a way, the Cuban inspiration feels like the perfect, inevitable cross-section for the Far Cry series. It meets the tropical, ever-expanding remote locations of the past and the implementation of DIY weaponry from Far Cry New Dawn right in the middle, for the series' logical next step. It's a concept almost so perfectly conceived that, frankly, it's hard to imagine Far Cry 6 being inspired by anywhere else in the world. And for much more on Far Cry 6, make sure to stick with IGN.